For decades, Colombia was known as the land of the world's most famous coffee, fast-paced salsa, and of course, the name that made international headlines, Pablo Escobar. But anyone who thinks that's all there is to the country is mistaken. Did you know that in Colombia, it's common for children to start their day with a cup of black coffee before even going to school? Have you heard that there's a traditional sport there that involves real explosions? What if I told you that, hidden among mountains and forests, there's a river that changes color naturally, as if by magic? That's right. Colombia goes far beyond the stereotypes. Today, Bello Mundo takes you on a tour of places, stories, and customs that you probably never imagined existed, all gathered in one of the most surprising countries in Latin America. Number 1. The country. Colombia doesn't have just one face, it has several. You leave a city where you need a jacket because it's cold, and 2 hours later you're sweating in the heat of the coast. The country looks like it was put together from pieces of different places. It has frozen mountains, dense forests, hot beaches, cracked deserts, and everything else in between. And that's not just a figure of speech, it's real. The north is dry with hard-packed sand and strong winds. The south is pure humidity, with trees so dense that hardly any light gets through. In the center, the mountains squeeze everything together. This is where the big cities are, with their fast-paced life and strong coffee rising from the plantations. In Bogotá, the air is thinner, the traffic is noisy, and the city lives at a pace that is half gray, half fast. Medellín, on the other hand, is open, lighter, more agile. Cartagena is hot, with sweat dripping down your skin, people selling things on the street all the time, and music coming from somewhere you can't quite place. But that's just the beginning. Number 2. Places. Let's start with what is perhaps the most unbelievable place in the country, Caño Cristales. Called the River of Five Colors, it looks like it was drawn by hand. For a few months of the year, a plant that only grows there turns the bottom completely red. The water is so clean that it almost disappears. With the green moss, yellow sand, dark rocks, and light shining down, the effect is absurd. It's not an easy trip. There's a long trail, strong sun, and limited number of visitors. Even so, those who go never forget it. And if a river can impress like that, the sea also has its own spectacle. In San Andrés, the water is divided into bands visible from above. There are 7 shades of blue, from the shallowest turquoise to the deepest navy blue. The reef, the light, and the variation in the seabed create this natural gradient that has given the place its name, the Sea of 7 Colors. In addition, the island has an Afro-Caribbean accent, food with coconut and chili, and a calm that seems to ignore the clock. It's a separate piece within the same country. Another place that cannot be left out is the La Correra waterfall, the highest in Colombia. It is almost 1,970 feet high, hidden in the middle of the rainforest. The trail to get there is tough, mud, climbs, roots along the way, but the arrival is worth it. On the other side, the Tequendama waterfall impresses in a different way. It plunges from a cliff surrounded by mist, and right next to it is an old building with a reputation for being haunted. It is the Hotel del Salto, a mansion from the 20s built to house wealthy tourists who came to admire the view of the waterfall. However, over time, the river became polluted, visitors disappeared, and the hotel was abandoned. It is said that it became a place where many people went to take their own lives. The building remained closed for decades, accumulating dark stories until it was turned into a museum. But just looking at it, perched on the edge of the cliff, you can feel that the heavy energy is still there. Now everything changes, from green to red, from wet to dry. In the Tatacoa Desert, the ground is cracked, the earth is red or gray, and the heat easily reaches over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. There are no pretty dunes here. The soil seems to have been sculpted by rain and wind. But it is at night that the place shows its true value. The sky is clear, dark, full of stars, and there is even an astronomical observatory to see everything calmly. There are plenty of reports of strange lights cutting across the sky, signs talking about UFOs, and a silence that makes everything seem out of this world. In the middle of nowhere, a public swimming pool appears like an oasis. You dive in and then lie down to dry in total silence, surrounded by rocks and dust. But that's not all. In the central Andes, there are active volcanoes. In the flooded plains, anacondas, capybaras, and anteaters live. The Colombian Amazon remains untouched in many places, home to species that exist nowhere else. And in the sky, one of the continent's most curious phenomena occurs. The Catatumbo lightning, an electrical storm that repeats itself almost every night near the border with Venezuela. But if nature catches your attention, wait until you learn about the history. Number 3. History. Long before it was remembered for soap operas, coffee, or music, Colombia was marked by civil wars, violent colonization, and decades of instability. The story begins before the name existed. Indigenous peoples, such as the Chibchas, already knew about gold, astronomy, and agriculture long before the Spanish set foot there in the 16th century. Colonization came with the sword and the cross. In 1538, the Spanish founded Santa Fe de Bogota, and the territory became part of the Viceroyalty of New Granada. Independence only came 3 centuries later, in 1819, with Simón Bolívar leading the fight. But even free, the country would remain unstable. In 1903, it lost what is now Panama. In the 40s and 50s, it collapsed with La Violencia, a civil war that spread fear throughout the country. However, no episode in Colombian history had as much international impact as what would come in the 80s. It was in that decade that the whole world learned a name: Pablo Escobar. Number 4. Pablo Escobar. Escobar became synonymous with power, violence, and impunity. He controlled more than 80% of the cocaine that reached the United States. He was among the richest men on the planet. He had influence in the Colombian Congress, support from part of the population, and bought allies with what he called silver or lead, meaning money or bullets. But over time, the net closed in. He became the most wanted man in the world. The hunt involved the DEA, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, Colombian Special Forces, rival cartels, and undercover agents. And the hunt was not easy. He knew how to go unnoticed and throw people off his trail. He was always changing hideouts, living in simple houses, and only using the radio to communicate. Until, in 1993, they traced a phone call and raided the hideout. He tried to escape across the rooftops, but was killed. The scene made global headlines, and the country was divided. 25,000 people attended the funeral. Some cried, others just wanted to witness the end of an era. Escobar was seen by many as a criminal, by others as a benefactor. Before he died, he had already become a mythical figure, not only for his violence but also for his absurdities. At Hacienda Nápoles, his farm, he had a zoo built with giraffes, rhinos, and African hippos. 4 escaped and reproduced. Today, around 160 wild hippos live freely in the rivers of Colombia, the largest population in the world outside Africa. Escobar had fresh flowers delivered to his penthouse every day. He spent almost $3,000 on fireworks alone at New Year's Eve. At the same time, he built low-income housing in Medellin. He created a neighborhood with more than 400 homes, which still bears his name today. The city itself has become a tourist attraction. There is his grave, his old house, a mural, the neighborhood, and everything attracts visitors. Escobar was called Robin Hood by some, a demon by others. But no one disagrees on one thing. He became part of Colombia's history. Number 5. Population, daily life, and curiosities. Colombia currently has about 52 million inhabitants, and as you would expect in such a diverse country, daily life is also full of contrasts, customs, and very unique ways of living. Let's start with a habit that spans generations: coffee. Here, coffee is not just a national product, it is almost a member of the family. Children grow up drinking tintico, a very weak, sweetened coffee served in small cups. For the youngest, it is common to mix it with milk, and no one sees a problem with that. Another striking feature is the extreme politeness in speech. Even when ordering coffee, the Colombian way is different. Instead of saying, "Give me a coffee," they say, "Regálame un café," which literally translates to, "Give me a coffee as a gift." It's their way of softening the request. It sounds lighter, kinder, and this way of speaking extends to everything. Colombians have a real aversion to saying no directly. They prefer to beat around the bush. "I'll see later" can be a disguised no. "Let's arrange it" already means it's not going to happen. This delicacy appears in another typical expression, "Que pena contigo," which translates as something like, "What a pity for you." It can be for bumping into someone, interrupting a sentence, or even asking for permission. The pena here does not mean pain, it means politeness. It is an advance apology, and they use it all the time. At first, it may seem exaggerated, but over time you understand. It is just their way of making life together lighter, smoother, more human. And when it comes to superstitions, the whole country becomes a stage for symbolic rituals. Number 6. Superstitions. If there's one thing Colombians take seriously, it's the end-of-year ritual. When December 31st arrives, the whole country is filled with good luck charms. Some eat 12 grapes, one for each month of the year, making a silent wish. Others walk around the block with an empty suitcase to attract travel. And almost everyone sets fire to a doll called Año Viejo, made from old clothes, newspaper, paper, and even gunpowder. The doll represents everything that went wrong in the past year. At midnight, it goes into the bonfire, exploding along with the problems. It's the Colombian way of turning the page, but no custom is as symbolic as yellow underwear. Boxers, panties, bras. As long as it's new and yellow, it counts. The color represents money, luck, and prosperity. In other countries, mainly in South America, some people wear red for love, white for peace, and green for hope. But in Colombia, there is no variation. It's yellow or nothing. The custom gained momentum in the 1980s and became a national craze. At the end of each year, piles of yellow underwear take over the stores, and even those who don't believe in it join in the fun, because no one wants to risk starting the year on the wrong side of luck. But the rituals are not limited to New Year's Eve. In many regions, eggs are used as a spiritual sweep. A fresh egg is rubbed over the body to remove bad energy, then broken into a glass of water, where the shape of the egg white is red. Herbal baths, colored candles, and charcoal cleansing are also part of the popular repertoire. Some people won't start a trip without turning their suitcase upside down 3 times in the living room. Others avoid sweeping the house at night for fear of driving away good luck. These are ancient practices that blend Catholicism, popular wisdom, and even indigenous elements. But it's not just superstitions. When it comes to partying, Colombia puts on a show all its own. Number 7. Parties. For many people, Carnival is synonymous with Brazil. Whether in the parades of São Paulo and Rio, or in the streets filled with frevo and maracatu in the northeast, the most common image is that of Brazilians in costume, dancing under the sun to the sound of drums. But Colombia has its own way of celebrating Carnival, and it's just as good. The Barranquilla Carnival in the Colombian Caribbean is a 4-day street explosion that brings the entire city to a standstill. It always takes place before Lent, like traditional Latin American carnivals, but with its own identity. One of the most important moments is the Batalla de Flores, a parade created in 1903, where floats parade down avenues while dancers, revelers, and queens throw flowers to the crowd. Among the most eagerly awaited characters is Marimonda, a comical figure with baggy clothes, a wide tie, and a mask with a hanging nose. She emerged in the 19th century as a satire of arrogant politicians and has now become a symbol of the festival. While Barranquilla boils in the Caribbean, up in the southern mountains, in Pasto, the black and white carnival takes place. It is a celebration that mixes party, memory, and social criticism. For 2 days, people paint themselves, first black, then white. The origin dates back to the days of slavery, when black people were given a day of freedom on January 5th. To mark this moment, they painted themselves white as a sign of equality. The next day, white people reciprocated by painting themselves black in solidarity. Today, the tradition has become a collective ritual. In the interior of Caldas, an unusual figure leads the party: the devil. At the Rio Sucio Carnival, which only takes place in even-numbered years, the host is a smiling demon who symbolizes the reconciliation of 2 rival villages. Instead of scaring people, the devil leads parades, provocations, and parties. It is organized chaos as a way of celebrating unity. On the peaceful side of Colombia, the party is different. In Quibdó, capital of the department of Choco, the Fiestas de San Pacho take place. It is a mixture of religious procession and Afro-Colombian festival. The streets become a catwalk of faith and culture. Floats with Catholic images parade alongside percussion bands, colorful costumes, and dances inherited from African peoples. It is one of the most striking celebrations of Black identity in the country. And when December arrives, the tone changes. On the 7th, Colombians celebrate Noche de las Velitas, a night when all families light candles at their front doors to mark the beginning of the Christmas festivities. The tradition is simple. Each candle represents a wish, a blessing, or a memory. The streets are covered with light, and the Christmas spirit spreads everywhere. In Colombia, celebrations are always linked to identity. Each region has its own rhythm, its own history, its own way of taking to the streets. It may be with paint on their faces, with flowers, with demons, or with candlelight. But what is never missing is people dancing, singing, and living the culture to the fullest. Number 8. Legends and folklore. Behind the joy in the streets and everyday kindness, there is another side to Colombia. A dark, mysterious side where fantastic beings roam forests, rivers, and mountains. These are figures from popular folklore, passed down from generation to generation, which still cause many people to avoid certain trails at dusk. In the humid jungles of the Pacific, the real bogeyman is La Tunda. She has no definite form. She appears with the face of someone in the family, a mother, an aunt, a sister. This is how she deceives her victims, usually unfaithful men or disobedient children. After luring them into the woods, she serves them enchanted shrimp that hypnotize them, and there she keeps them trapped in a spell called entundamiento. They say she limps because one of her feet is a wooden pestle hidden under her skirt, and that her rotten smell betrays her presence, who disappears in the woods without explanation. It was La Tunda who tundu them. In the mountains, the feared name is Madre Monte, the guardian of the forest. Enormous, with bright eyes and a body covered in moss and leaves, she punishes those who invade the woods without respect. Greedy woodcutters and farmers who dry up rivers can all be punished with fog, floods, or windstorms. Ancient peasants left tobacco to calm her down. They say she loves a good cigar. And even today, if a crop is destroyed by unexpected rain, she gets the blame. El Mohan rules the rivers, a hairy, bearded man who lives by the water, smoking tobacco and whistling at night. He is known for messing up fishing nets, capsizing boats, and even seducing women. Fishermen pray before entering the river and never catch more fish than they need. If a boat suddenly capsizes, no one doubts it. It was Mohan who got angry. And that's just the beginning. There is Patasola, the spirit of a one-legged woman who moans in the woods, seeking revenge. There is Lorona, the ghost of a mother who cries for her dead children, whose appearance heralds misfortune. There is also Candeleja, a cruel grandmother who turned into a ball of fire, wandering through the fields. And there is even Polo Maligno, a demonic rooster that lures reckless hunters to their death in the woods. Almost all of these stories have something in common. A warning. Respect nature. Be faithful. Don't cross the line. Number 9. Peculiar sports. When it comes to leisure, Colombia also shows its originality. Soccer is a national passion, of course, but the sport officially recognized as national has nothing to do with cleats, balls, or goals. It has the sound of an explosion. The name is Tejo, and it is an unlikely mixture of bocce, target shooting, and gunpowder. It works like this. The player throws a metal disc weighing more than half a kilo, trying to hit a clay target about 20 meters away. However, this target contains small envelopes with gunpowder called mechas. When the disc hits the target, the mecha explodes with a loud, sharp sound. The more explosions, the more points. Each explosion scores a point and elicits laughter, shouts, and celebrations. The game originated among the indigenous Muisca people centuries ago as a way to resolve disputes peacefully. It is even said that warriors competed in Tejo for the right to marry someone from a neighboring tribe. Today, it is the national pastime played in villages, bars, and urban clubs, always with plenty of beer. In fact, one of the unofficial rules is clear. The losing team pays for the drinks. But Tejo is not alone. In bars, the game of Rana is also popular. The challenge is to throw small rings into the mouth of a bronze frog. Simple, addictive, and even more fun after a few drinks. On the more conventional side, Colombia is a cycling powerhouse. Climbs such as Alto de Letras, one of the most difficult in the world, have become a destination for amateur cyclists, all because of local idols such as Nairo Quintana and Egan Bernal, who have made a name for themselves in the Tour de France and inspired an entire generation. And even in eccentricities, the country stands out. In underwater rugby, a sport completely off the radar, the Colombian women's team has already been world champion. Underwater rugby has very little to do with traditional rugby. The only things they share are their competitive spirit and their name. This unusual sport was born in the 60s in Germany in diving clubs. It was actually an exercise to improve the endurance and physical conditioning of divers, but it ended up becoming an official competition. Here's how it works. 2 teams of 6 players face each other in a deep pool wearing goggles, fins, and snorkels. The goal is to catch a ball filled with saline solution so that it sinks, and then place it in a kind of metal basket positioned at the bottom of the pool on the opposite side from the opposing team. But everything happens underwater. You can't shout or ask for time out. It's all about speed, breath control, and synchronization. Players rise and fall all the time, passing the ball in 3 dimensions, and the game turns into a kind of silent battle, intense and strategic. Number 10. Gastronomy. After so many landscapes, trails, characters, and legends, it's time to end our trip in the best way possible, with food. Colombia is a full plate, literally. Its cuisine reflects the country's diversity, hearty dishes, exotic ingredients, and combinations that may seem strange at first glance, but win you over. A good example is chocolate with cheese. In Bogota, it is traditional to dip a piece of white cheese in hot chocolate and wait for it to melt. The combination of sweet and salty, although unusual, is revered as a typical snack and part of Bogota's heritage. Another impressive dish is the bandeja paisa, a feast worthy of respect. A single platter is filled with rice, red beans, ground beef, pork rinds, sausage, fried egg, ripe plantain, corn arepa, avocado, and tomato sauce with onions. It was the food of the peasants in the Antioquia region, made to sustain them through a whole day in the mountains. Today it is a national symbol and a delicious exaggeration. But Colombia also has some very exotic flavors. In Santander, for example, people eat the famous hormigas culonas, giant ants roasted with salt. They are crunchy, rich in protein, and reputed to be an aphrodisiac. They are said to have been offered as a dowry at weddings. Today, they are sold in bags at markets, like local popcorn. And when it comes to fruit, Colombia steals the show. The country has hundreds of tropical varieties. One of the most popular is the tomate de árbol, or tamarillo. It looks like an elongated plum, red or orange in color, with a sweet and sour taste. The juice is made by blending the pulp with water, sugar, and a little lemon. It is refreshing, somewhere between the tartness of passion fruit and the sweetness of cashew. Another typical drink from the Caribbean coast is coconut lemonade, a cold mixture of lemon juice, coconut milk, sugar, and lots of ice. It tastes like a creamy citrus milkshake, ideal for hot weather. Finally, the pride and joy, Colombian coffee. Smooth, aromatic, and balanced, it is one of the most respected coffees in the world. At markets, coffee shops, and family homes, it is always served fresh and freshly brewed. And if someone puts a piece of cheese in your cup, you can trust them. It's a tradition. And that's it for today. So, which of these facts about Colombia surprised you the most? Did you already know any of these traditions, customs, or incredible places? Tell us in the comments. And if you liked this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe here at Bello Mundo so you don't miss our next content about interesting facts and surprising destinations around the world. See you in the next video.